Right now, we have another young Indian with us, Voice of the Young segment. Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Arindam Upmanyu. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Arindam.
Hello, sir. Hello, everyone. Uh, Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. I'm very glad to be here. I'll start by sharing a little bit about myself. I'm Arindam Upmanyu. I belong to Jaipur, India. Currently, I'm working with Deloitte India as a consultant in the public finance sector. Previously, I've worked with KPMG India in the public health space. And prior to that, I had been interning with Carnegie India in the political economy program. While the journey after my post graduation has been quite steep, I would first like to begin with my educational qualifications, or where all of this started, or the root of it all. My undergraduation study, my major was public administration and my minor was economics. It is pretty different from the conventional engineering or the medical courses that we have, the tradition or the trends that would show in India. And this this interest had been since my school days itself. So from learning about the constitution, civics as a subject that we were introduced in school. So that always took my fancy, took my interest, and that is how I pursued these two subjects in undergraduation. Uh, this gave me a very good context of how the Indian administrative system is set up and how uh, policies, schemes are not only designed but also implemented. Uh, Pursuing the same course, pursuing the same line, but in terms of more of a skill-oriented approach, I joined the first cohort of the Indian School of Public Policy in Delhi. And here, the course, as rigorous or as rigorous public policy can be, it was my fortune to be taught by some of the stalwarts in the Indian public policy space, like Shamika Ravi, Sanjay Baru, Pranab Sen, Shubhashish Gangopadhyay. These stalwarts who taught, and I must say that they taught very well, because the confidence that we got as students was a major boost for us. And during uh, during this phase, I also got a chance to work on a short-term engagement with NSDC, the National Skill Development Corporation of India. And soon after, we got a good reality check of COVID-19. COVID had just struck the country, and very quickly we realized that that particular time, as difficult and as challenging as it was perhaps a very crucial time for us. We were told that, look, this is the place, this is the time where you can learn about crisis management. This is of this scale, of this magnitude, and how public policy or schemes in particular are run. Uh, uh, right after that, right after completing my post-graduation study, I joined Carnegie India as an intern with the political economy program. And here, the key learning that I think that I wanted to highlight was the fact that uh, there is a there is a very strong system of the bureaucracy being held accountable by the political class in terms of the parliamentary committees. In my duration of the internship, that was something that I realized in terms of research, in terms of data, in terms of the progress of programs.
Yeah.
These parliamentary committees were a very critical element of how these schemes are being run. Why are why are they in the state that they are in, and how these officials of the highest order are held accountable for their decisions, for their actions, for the outcomes that these schemes give. So that was something which was very critical for me. Right after that, I got the opportunity to be in KPMG's government advisory practice in the public health space. Uh, by then, uh, this was before the second wave, as it is in India, had hit. And by the time I joined public health space, this wave had come, and the virus was spreading more and more uh, in a very wild fashion. And in that time, we had to not only understand, but it was a very eye-opening case for me to see that how even though uh, uh, one of the modules in public policy is how about design thinking, about designing a policy from the user's point of view, so that that particular entire structure is easy for that person to understand, or easy for the beneficiary to understand. In my experience, uh, those structures, as well thought out as they might prove to be, yet are not always foolproof. Uh, Implementation opens up many facts, or many tangents, or many angles of a certain policy, which tells that that uh, this this also could have been done. This side of a policy which was not present earlier could also have been done. So the particular case of repetitive reform was very clear to me, and I think that was one of the highlights. And so it was a privilege to be working in the health sector uh, during the COVID space. Uh,
Let me stop you there. This is a critical phrase that I've learned today, repetitive reform. I think it's a very important addition to my vocabulary, because I know that implementation is dependent on the details, and it's not possible to know all the local details.
yes.
So you get stuck because you didn't take account of this or that. And so you have to make adjustments. And I had no word for it. And today you have taught me repetitive reforms. So I want to thank you for it, and let's go ahead with it. But it's something that young economists need to know and understand, that it's very tough to actually make general policies that are locally workable. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Let's go ahead with your talk.
No worries. And certainly, I believe also that repetitive reform, or continuing to build on these practices, is very critical, is very important, and how that's how any policy or any system in particular can sustain itself through being improved. As a matter of fact, I should also point out that at ISPP, when this was before COVID, one of I think the inventions, as if I could call it that, of our cohort was to come together as a community and call ourselves, or call that community Samavesh. In this community, we sat together to discuss on public policy issues back then, even now, and this concept of these Samavesh meetings continues even today, and that is
Wonderful. Wonderful.
yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And that is quite critical. And it was not only because of the fact that we should be discussing, it was also because of the fact that um, as policy students, now that we have the training from our professors on how to think better on these issues, we should perhaps be putting that into practice. We should perhaps be applying that. And that was a phase where and we still do connect with each other uh, on these concepts. We debate on ideas. Perhaps we have almost come to an understanding that we will not always find a solution in these discussions, but it is always helpful to understand different perspectives, diverse understandings of one particular thing, and that is what any policy discussion, I think, should holistically cover. Uh, Moving on to my time at KPMG.
Hang on,
Here,
hang on. I hope at some time you'll also tell us about your time in your school. But let's listen to KPMG first.
certainly, right after KPMG then. So in KPMG, my role was as a consultant in the public health space. Here we were primarily working on the implementation of health insurance schemes uh, along with the ministries or departments uh, for the beneficiaries in question. In my experience, there were 2 to 3 key lessons from this experience. One was one should never almost assume that a certain policy or the beneficiaries do not have the entire know-how of what is covered under a policy and what is not. Interaction with beneficiaries, I think, have been the singular most important element which sort of humbles you to that extent that no, despite all the fancy public policy education or however you think uh, the height of the work or the impact uh, that those interactions can really uh, tell you that uh, it's a level playing field. Uh, uh, in Hindi, there's I think कि ये public है ये सब जानती है. The public knows about the how things are run, and I think that was one of the important elements. Another thing that I learned in public sector so far is it takes time for reforms to uh, come into or translate into outcomes. So it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of dedicated, uh, consistent effort, as it were. And that is perhaps the biggest test and the biggest ask in this space. Because from what I understand or what my experiences have been, public policy or this space in terms of design or implementation is a difficult space, and it as it should be. Policies are well thought out, and that process you learn a lot. Now I think I should pivot back to my school days. So my schooling was from a bunch of different schools, since my parents uh, are on a transferable job. So from Jaipur to Shimla to Port Blair to Ahmedabad. So so these were the cities that we moved during the time. Uh, of course, making friends and perhaps you know sort of breaking that connect right after a few years is of course a little bit emotionally painful, but at the same time you learn to build on those bonds. I'm of course still friends with a lot of people I've been friends with, or I've had the chance to study with. So, and that also teaches you about a lot of diverse cultures that India has. So, fortunately, since the length and breadth of what we could travel, uh, so diverse different regional cultures or the habits or uh, the the way things are done, uh, regional languages, the language barrier that can come up from place to place. So not just living with tolerating that as it were, but also learning to that, so as to speak to adapt to that is quite crucial, and that is what something that my schooling taught. uh, i I must say that I was also part of the engineering wave, although I did not end up being an engineer. I had taken physics, chemistry, maths uh, during my 11th and 12th, and perhaps I was a part of the wave back then. And in this particular case, uh, I uh, I fortunately could stay true to my aptitude and convert, or if not convert, but then pivot back to liberal studies or governance or civics, as it were.
Yeah.
So that's a quick run through of the schools. It also did give me a chance to play different sports,
Mm.
learn about different dances, culinary, or
Dances.
food. Well, that's
That's
sort of
nice.
stands out as one of
Yeah.
the things.
Yeah.
The food habits,
Mm,
uh, uh, the places, or how how neatly, or how
mm,
the kind of uh, societal regional
mm,
practices that they have. So of course that was also quite a wonderful experience to be uh, to have gone through that phase, and that has sort of become the core uh, of of what I think I am, like who I am now,
okay.
to learn to adapt to different cultures, to different types of people, to different types of habits, to ensure that I see things as they are in that time and place. So yeah, I think that is a quick overview of this the schooling part, and uh, I if I can pivot back uh,
Yeah, sure.
uh, to the work part of it. Uh, uh, One of the other things that I wanted to highlight was that in this entire phase that I was at in the public health space, it also taught me on how to reflect on not just implementation but also on design, and that is where I picked up on writing. And sir, I think that that has been one of the most critical lessons or habits that I've developed. So in that phase I started writing a blog called Coffee Policy and a Word, which I still do write on today. But in these I highlighted or wrote on issues of what I think are major public policy issues. But in this process, what I found that writing does not only teach you to write better, but also to listen better, to be more, to read better, and in fact, to even understand various viewpoints better. So in that process, uh, writing on Substack, writing on blogs has really helped me. Uh, and in fact, uh, these discourses that we do, something that we picked up from I, I, I as a cohort, I mean, picked up from my post graduation. That still continues on today. As a matter of fact, the alumni and also the current cohort of the Indian School of Public Policies is preparing for a Samavesh Policy Summit in December, where different ideas or different viewpoints on different policies are invited, and they would be discussed at the summit. Uh, and I, of course, also wanted to extend an invitation for you, if you should you find the time, please do join us on December 16, 17. Uh, the discussions are quite broad ranging. It's These are on uh, current policy issues uh, as the current cohort sees it, but also as practitioners see it. And your experience would also help us understand and mold our understanding better. So that is also something. Sorry.
I will join depending on the time, because
Certainly.
if it's in the daytime in India, it's not suitable for
Yeah.
me because it's night here. But
Yes.
anyway, let's continue. I will try to join. Okay, let's continue.
Sure. Sure. So I think in this entire experience, be it with the short-term engagement of the skill development, or even as a trip, as a cohort in the Indian School of Public Policy, we went to Jaisalmer as part of the national security module to learn about how at near the India Pak border, where the entire setup is there, and we try to understand these concepts, these ideas, by interacting with the people, with interacting with the forces, with interacting, and that I think was particularly a pivotal point uh, uh, for this entire learning in public policy. From my understanding, I've always admired uh, uh, the thinkers who have come before, who have worked on so much of the Indian public policy space. But at the same time, there are many reforms, and actually, I want that still need to be done. For example, I wrote on an issue that uh, Prosperity, a think tank in Delhi, or formerly known as Trayas, um, in their flagship report, which was titled "State of the Discrimination Report," found out that there are about 50 acts and 150 rules that bar women's right to choose work in India, and which was something that they have written quite well about, and this was a fresh perspective uh, that I learned about this case, uh, because uh, given on a macro perspective, this is quite contradictory to the aspirations of the Indian economy to transform itself into a $5 trillion capacity, or to that level, but at the same time, sort of hold back the talent that it has. Of course, the report goes on further into how uh, these rules are being broken down, these in some places, how these rules are in fact even being upheld, and that sort of sets a judicial precedence, uh, which makes it even more difficult to sort of legally fight it out, or to legally uh, unshackle it, so to speak.
Could you give an
But
example of such a rule? I mean, you said there are 50. You didn't produce it, but could you just
yeah.
share an example so that we know what you're talking about?
Right. So, for example, the report goes on into depth on different questions. For example, can women work in heavy industries, or can women work in plantations at night in different areas, or in different districts of India? For example, even for these two questions, the answers varies from state to state, district to district, and that and uh, prosperity produced an entire ranking on how states are ranked in terms of how malleable, or
Yeah.
how they see this entire thing, and uh, how open their economy, that state economy, is
Yeah.
to this entire concept. So I think that is just one of the things that has come to my mind, at least,
Okay.
that
Yeah. Let me just interrupt you here. Recently, I read that Tamil Nadu and Karnataka have lifted the restriction on
Mhm,
women working late at night
mhm,
because of the demands of the new manufacturers who want to
mhm,
run late night shifts, and the women were
mhm.
not allowed to work late night shifts. I believe Karnataka and Tamil Nadu have lifted that restriction.
Right.
Uh,
Yes. Well, I must admit that I could have not been able to follow it, but in my understanding, and even as per the report, the South Indian states have done better significantly. So, in terms of being malleable to this entire viewpoint,
Okay.
and which of course sort of contributes on, or fortunately sets administrative precedents, so to speak, for other states to follow, and of course to sort of condense it down to the national economy, and achieve the 5 trillion target, or even beyond uh, that. Uh, or recently, I had a discussion with a group of uh, uh, the current cohort, on how there are about 2,000 minimum wages, or different with the reference to different schedules of employment, or different job categories in India. So that uniformity, and as I understand it, the minimum wage uh, resides in a very complex framework in India, and that, of course, not just from an investor point of view, but also from a governance point of view, could be a challenge. These are some of the reforms that, or some of the issues that I've been thinking about. Of course, there are several. I think with time and with experience, I think I'll learn better. Of course, evolve on my viewpoints. on how these or even on my stance on how these things are uh, possible, because uh, as I remember one of our professors saying that if you are sort of proposing a reform right now, why do you think it has not been done sooner? Why do you think that this was not thought through before? And I think that uh, uh, that would be in time and in with experience is something that I'll learn. Uh, a- uh, and I think that that stays true for not just Indian policy or state policy, but even for global policy. I have not had the chance to work on it yet, uh, but I would, if I can request you to share your viewpoint on how uh, how in your experiences, uh, in terms of these challenges, in terms of the coordination between different entities, government entities, or between multilaterals and countries, how would that go about, or how does that take place? If you could shed some light on that.
Well, unfortunately, I cannot shed light on that because I have not been involved in programs that involve many countries working together. So I really don't know personally how compromises are evolved and how things are settled. Because when you have many countries, it is a very difficult business. But I have not been involved in it. So I can't add to that. But what I do want to say is that your focus on talking to the target beneficiaries is spot on. It's exactly right. You need to do your field work. You need to go out there and talk to them. And, it's the key element that is often missing. You need to go out there. For me, I have worked extensively in rural Indonesia, rural parts of Africa, traveling in very difficult places and very difficult situations, especially Africa. There's no electricity 50 miles radius around you. But that, and there also, I used to only talk to not the technical people because I would talk to school teachers, I would talk to nurses, I would talk to various people, because without it, your idea is going to be very tough to implement. You really don't know what it is that is happening there unless you are there. And even more than your own knowledge, uh, they are not comfortable with your program and your scheme. So it's really very, very important to understand that part, that implementation depends upon the people who are your beneficiaries. And the program should not come to them through some high and mighty decree or farman or whatever. It has to come from people, has to come from you that, look, this is what we are going to do. For example, uh, I was involved in rural solar programs, and those were unknown at the time. So it was completely fresh idea, but people had some idea. And if you go out and you say, listen, you can have it on your rooftop, then some people are suspicious that is this second-class electricity. Am I getting a bad deal because the government cannot extend the grid? Why can't I have normal electricity? So you need to answer that question. You need to go and discuss it with the people. You need to explain it to them that this is what it is, and you need to go out and see how it's working. Now, of course, the problem is that the people who design these things, they really cannot have the time to go out and do it. So you need to have a flexibility in your design so that it can be adapted by the various parts where it is going to be implemented. If you have a very tight policy design, then you lose out on the local, what should I say, conditions. And now this is a growing recognition in the development business. And if I can summarize it, it is to say, try to tackle local problems with global resources.
Yeah.
Okay, don't try to, it's a fundamental problem for a large country. India is very large. If you have a national policy, it doesn't really suit each state. And even a state policy doesn't really suit every district. You've been to Jaisalmer, you've lived in Jaipur. If you, and nowadays Kota is very famous in India. Kota and Jaisalmer have nothing in common. Kota is not water short. People wrongly say Rajasthan is a desert state because Kota is not desert at all. And even Jaipur is not desert at all. I mean, so, to have a uniform water supply scheme across Kota and Jaisalmer wouldn't make any sense. So you have to have that local flexibility to meet the local needs and the conditions and requirements. This is emerging, but it's not easy to implement in policies.
Right.
So I don't know about, as I said, I cannot answer your questions. You have to be part of the UN to be able to answer those questions. I have not been part of the UN, but I can understand that it is difficult to. What I can tell you is that if you try to do a multi-sector project in a country, it's very tough.
Yes.
So it's the same difficulties at a higher scale you would get across countries. But if you try to do, you say, I want to be holistic, I need to have health, education, energy at the same time. It's very, very tough to work across the silos. But okay, enough from me. This is not about my times, it's about you. So let's continue.
Right. Just picking up on that, I also have the view that state capacity, not just on central or even the state level, but also in the district or in the regional or in the Panchayati Raj institutions or the urban local bodies, that is also very, very critical because the real action or in terms of policy reform, not just on paper, but also on ground, happens in these particular places. And if that level of state capacity is not present, that would never truly transform. I was actually reading somewhere that uh, uh, that China's economy, in fact, is quite is run or basically centered around the mayors of different provinces, or how mayors are in fact accountable or are the decision making authorities on a various or a range of different things. And I think that is how of course that is something not could work everywhere, but in that particular case, that level of state capacity, in my understanding, is derived from that level or that going down to that particular level and reaching the beneficiaries through that is quite critical. And of course, uh, for India, it would depend from state to state, region to region, district to district, Panchayati Raj institution to the other. So of course, it's quite complicated and a long process. But from what I've gathered so far, there is a continuous sense of reform. There is a continuous sense of uh, uh, especially in digitization, especially in bringing technology as a very key factor in governance, which is a very important part of it as an enabler. But of course, technologies only technologies do not run programs. People do, or the entire setup does, and equivalent weight or equivalent effort as is on digital interventions uh, should perhaps also be on the on the human resource, or on the human talent which is present at these different decentralized institutions. And perhaps that would lead to better reform, to better uh, implementation, to better design, and in fact, what I think you were alluding to uh, that feedback mechanism from the user to the ones who make the policy and the ones who implement the policy. So that feedback mechanism, systems talking to each other, is perhaps quite crucial to really building sound public policy systems. And and of course, in the process, also averting crisis, or handling crises well. uh, I think not just in terms of health, or COVID-19 being a crisis, but uh, in any even in other sectors, in finance and technology, uh, these things do matter. And perhaps uh, a user-oriented design is something that policy systems need. Uh,
Okay.
but also, apart from that, I'm also of the view that uh, the youth in India today, and the youth around the world, um, well, of course, it is already there, but also more should be more participative. Perhaps these ideas, uh, uh, not just in the public policy domain, because I have worked, or I have studied that, but also in terms of business, in terms of art. These voices are very critical and are very important to the framework, or uh, to the base of what uh, uh, the future decades would hold, and the kind of reform that could take place. And that is where I think these level of interactions sh- should be encouraged, uh, not just in schools, colleges, campuses, but also in terms of organizations, but also in terms of NGOs, but also in terms of community participations, or community events, and which is where I think, uh, 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 although I understand that is quite a tall order, that is quite a tall ask,
Mm, mm,
but of course, in my understanding, it would really set uh, a very strong foundation for what our economy, what our uh, uh, culture, what our uh, state of well-being would be in the future. Uh, so I might be wrong, perhaps in time, time would tell. Uh, but that primarily is my view, that the role of youth is becoming more and more critical, more and more important, and right from schools and colleges, individuals should uh,
mm,
start discussing more, start talking to each other, start building on ideas, start building on existing concepts, uh, and in time improving them in real time. Uh, so that was also something that I wanted to mention. That is something that I've learned and I have been thinking about for past some time.
Okay,
Uh,
hang on for a second. This is
mhm.
one of the main motives behind this channel.
I-
Okay, I want to have more horizontal connections for young people, to empower young people,
mhm.
because the Indian society is still too top down. To empower young people, to give them a chance, not only like you to come here and express, but you are quite senior compared to, but basically even second year, third year BA students, to use this channel uh,
Mhm.
to do things that are not otherwise possible. So I'm really opening this channel not just to talks from me and you and others, but to actually say, listen, you college people, you want to organize an event, you can use this channel. So I want to empower the young people to actually come together in the way that you are talking about. Not everybody, because there are a lot of people who are just in Insta and Snap, but those who are not in Insta and Snap only, everybody is. But if you're not only in Insta and Snap, and we have found so many serious people who come to this channel to speak, they can begin to think in the future how we will make connections, not because you went to the same ISPP. I've had many students from ISPP on this channel, but that's a old style connection. You went to the same college or the same place. Today, we can form digital connections with people. We don't necessarily go to the same institution. And that's what I would like to promote on this channel to make it happen. I think it's very important because the digital world, the old people are visitors, the young people are natives. And they can take more advantage of it than the older people. So that's my support for your ideas. And actually, I'm trying to implement it.
Yes. I understand how that resonates with this entire framework of your channel, of your initiative, and being so very consistent at it. And I think that's quite um, uh, quite a major boost for a lot of young professionals, students who are currently uh, voicing out their opinions, forming their opinions relatively in the process of understanding concepts. And for them to start out at this stage is ever more critical.
Yeah.
So hats off for your efforts and for your
Let's
initiative.
as they say in policy, let's wait to see the results. Yeah. First, before we say the proof of the eating is in the pudding, let's have the pudding first. We don't yet have the pudding. Anyway, thanks for that. Okay, anything else you want to add?
Uh, so the voice of the youth, the voice of diverse uh, uh, different people from diverse backgrounds coming together to build a better, stronger nation was the macro objective that I wanted to point out. And I think and I think I've been able to put that point across, that ambition or that hope. Of course, there are too many frustrations in public policy, but over time, those are well worked on repetitively. And I hope that uh, uh, the entire systems, work in tandem as far as they can to build a better, strong state economy, to build a national economy. So yeah, I think that would be my take.
Okay, thank you, Arindam. That is a very, very powerful talk. You have real experience and you have really laid it out very clearly. And it's all, I hope more people listen to it and understand what it takes to get things done. And it's a very hopeful talk also. It's not pessimistic. It's basically you're saying we can do it. Okay. So yes,
absolutely.
and that's a message that I also want to push. So we'll catch up with you, I think, in a year to see where you are. For the
Certainly.
moment, let's say bye to the viewers, and I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Bye till then. Bye, everybody.